I'm so pleased to welcome the Honourable Tony Abbott. Welcome to the show. The latest episode is all about the voice, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but you talk in some detail about the genesis of constitutional recognition and how that's morphed into this more modern concept of a voice. Can you take us briefly through how this thing's evolved, please, Tony?
Thanks, Amanda. It's good to be with you. Look, it was originally all about recognition, but it's now all about power. It was originally all about an acknowledgement that Aboriginal people were here first, which is obviously and unarguably true, but it's now become all about injecting into our Constitution this thing called a voice, which could very substantially disrupt our whole system of governance. Now, I think the whole thing ran off the rails sometime after 2015 when a process of national consultation, which I had envisaged would include all Australians, was really taken over by some senior Indigenous leaders with a very fixed view as to what should come of it. And I think the Uluru Statement was really very much a product of those few leaders who were determined to get a particular outcome.
It's a real pity too, because there's so much goodwill in our community for Indigenous Australians, a real desire to see an equality of opportunity that is real and within reach for all. And by shifting this issue to be one that's really about power, it's alienating people who otherwise would really want to get behind it. We've heard so much about how this is a modest change, yet if you scratch the surface, there's really nothing modest about it. And that's something you picked up on the podcast. Let me just play this grab for you.
It's really payback punishment for the original sin of Australia's settlement. So look, this is hardly the benign reconciliation that the Prime Minister likes to suggest. It's a bit of a get square by Aboriginal Australia with the rest of it.
Tony, what have you made of the way so many yes advocates have been desperate to distance themselves from the harsher aspects of this and some of their own comments so that they can continue to tout this notion that it's modest?
Well, there's no doubt at all, Amanda, that there has been a rushing away from the detail of the Uluru Statement. They now insist that it was just 439 words instead of the 25-page statement that was released under Freedom of Information and the 86 pages that accompany all of that. And the message that comes out of the fuller Uluru Statement is very much one of get square. There's this strong sense of anger, of grievance, of dispossession, of the need to atone, make amends, pay even reparations, calculated as a percentage of GDP. That's all in the full Uluru Statement. Now, obviously, that's a world away from this generous invitation to walk together down a road of reconciliation, which the Prime Minister keeps talking about. And that's why they're backpedalling so hard. That's why they want to pretend that all of this suddenly doesn't exist, even though for years you had people like Megan Davis and Pat Anderson saying, look, everyone should read the full statement because the full statement contains our story. Well, I'm not saying that our story isn't a part of it, but the whole Australian story is nothing like as one-sided, divisive, oppressive, genocidal as the Uluru Statement makes it out to be. And that's why I think what's coming after the referendum, if the voice gets up, is very different from the genial togetherness that the Prime Minister now likes to dwell on.
What does it tell you that the PM is set to announce the date for the referendum in South Australia. Does that mean the yes side of the campaign sees South Australia as vital to that narrowing path to victory?
There's no doubt that there's calculation in everything the Yes campaign does. What the Prime Minister wants is a short, sharp campaign. He hopes that the massive tidal wave of money, a wall of moral intimidation, the combined forces of big business, big tech and big sport will carry people to this yes vote. Now, I've got a lot of faith in the Australian people, and I'm reasonably confident that they won't be bought. But on the other hand, there is no doubt that the Yes campaign has got a massive war chest. There's no doubt, as we've seen today, that officialdom generally is trying to weight the game in favour of the Yes side. And this really is a watershed moment for our country.
Well said. You and I were both at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, over the weekend, and you gave an address in which you spoke about the dangers of institutionalising grievance. It was such a good point that I didn't want viewers to miss out on it. Let's play a little now.
The last thing that we should be doing right now is entrenching victimhood and institutionalising grievance in our governance arrangements, and that's why there can only be one response to this referendum proposal, and it is an absolutely resounding no.
To my mind, it's a really good point, Tony, because there's a huge body of international evidence of when ideas like this have been tried elsewhere, as well as psychological evidence that says an attitude of victimhood and grievance is enormously disempowering, and that it reduces the outcomes that people are able to achieve in life. We know the outcomes for Indigenous Australians now are nowhere near they should be, but the politics of victimhood will only exacerbate the problem. That's accurate, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Amanda, just think, what do you reckon the first items on the Voice's agenda will be, should it get up? They'll be calling for the abolition of Australia Day. They'll be calling for the negotiation of treaties. They'll be calling for the payment of compensation / reparations, all because at the heart of the whole concept, at the heart of this whole enterprise, is this view that Aboriginal people were fundamentally ripped off in 1788, and it's now way past time for the rest of us to start making amends and to start paying them back. Now, I accept that not everything was perfect in the settlement era, but at least for the last 80 or 90 years, there's been nothing but goodwill on the part of official Australia for Indigenous Australians. There's been massive efforts made to help, and I think that we can go forward together as one equal, united people, and this Voice will be a permanent hurdle to that, which should be the great task of Australia, to be the best country on earth, because we are the least racist and the most colourblind country on earth, and let's not do anything that jeopardises that.
I've got enormous confidence in the wisdom of Australians, as it sounds like you do. Tony Abbott, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Amanda.